What's good, everybody? This episode of the podcast is sponsored by DistroKid. They are the go-to for digital music distribution and the easiest way for musicians to get your music onto Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, TikTok, YouTube, and more. They offer unlimited uploads, and artists keep 100% of their earnings in stores 10 to 20 times faster than any other distributor. Fastest payouts. They help out with automatic splits, cover song clearance, and all kinds of other amazing tools and templates to help you get the most visibility for your releases. I dig this company and appreciate their business model that offers more features than any other distributor at the most affordable price possible for solo musicians, bands, DJs, studio artists, and any other creators that are producing music in their home, and they also offer label services as well. They've got 3 different tiers to offer creators that start as low as $22.99 a year. That's just $1.92 a month, and even their top tier is just $7.50 per month. And the best part about DistroKid sponsoring the podcast is that they are offering Dan Cable Presents listeners and viewers 30% off your first year of membership with DistroKid, making their already affordable prices even cheaper for you. Check out the link in the episode notes. I will also put it in my Instagram bio in the link tree. That link will give you 30% off that first year of service. Super stoked to have DistroKid sponsoring the podcast and cannot thank them enough for their long time support of this thing. This episode of the podcast is also sponsored by Puff Coffee. Puff is one of my favorite coffee shops in Portland, Oregon. They've got a location off 28th and Stark in Southeast. Their coffee is delicious, and everyone that works there is always super friendly. I had the pleasure of staying in their neighborhood for a month or so, and it was just a real treat to have this as my neighborhood coffee shop for a bit. And now I find myself going out of my way to get over there and get some coffee. Puff Coffee was started by the founder of Stumptown Coffee, and they are making small batch coffee roasted daily here in Portland. Their mission to find, roast, and deliver the most delicious coffees anywhere. Their small batch process means that they get to keep things interesting with experimental blends and single origin gems while always keeping the classics on deck. They've got a variety of beans to choose from, and if you're not in the Portland area, you can order their small batch coffee straight to your home through their website, and you can use the coupon code DANCABLE, all one word, for 20% off a coffee subscription. Links for Puff Coffee will be in the episode notes. Big thanks to Puff for supporting the show and for their amazing small batch coffee. Now let's get into the episode.
Looking down at the
What is happening, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Dan Cable Presents podcast. Thank you for tuning into the program once again. If this is your first time listening, thanks for checking out the show. You can find fresh episodes coming at you every Tuesday, and if you want to help support this thing in a free way, you can do so by clicking subscribe on iTunes, clicking write a review, giving the podcast 5 stars if you feel like it is deserving of so. And that will help propel this thing into the tops of those iTunes charts, giving it more visibility on the national and international levels, helping strangers find the podcast, and just a great way to contribute to the growth and sustainability of this thing. If you're not listening on Apple, just hit like, follow, subscribe wherever you are listening from. If you're watching on YouTube, you can hit subscribe there. Check out the monthly playlist that I've been dropping every first of the month, pretty spread out genre-wise, and just a snapshot of what I'm listening to throughout the month, things that are making it into my DJ sets, and the links for those will be in the episode notes. Hope everybody is doing well out there. I am absolutely cooked from the Pickathon Music Festival that went down here in Happy Valley, Oregon, just outside of Portland this past weekend. Just another incredible Pickathon. It was my 6th year out there on the farm. It's become my favorite weekend of the year ever since I went that first time, and there's just something magical that happens out at Pickathon, and it happened again this weekend. Got to do like 15 interviews for the festival, talked to a bunch of different artists. I got to host a live session with former guests of the podcast, Foam Boy, and that was really great. There was like at least 100 people in that room. It was just absolutely packed out. It was one of the highlights of my weekend, hosting that session with them. They're just such a great band, and I just got to sit side stage watching them play and asking them questions throughout the set, and we had a lot of fun. So I am doing my best to get back in gear, and I am stoked to share this week's chat with Portland, Oregon-based trombone player, composer, and teacher Adriana Wagner is on the show. I've gotten to see Adriana play a handful of shows over the last year and a half or so. She's a great player, and I like the music that she is composing as well. And this was really the first time that we had ever formally met, and it was really nice to get to know her and learn more about her music background and just her approach to playing and her experience coming up in the scene. One of the reasons I wanted to have her on at this particular time is that she is playing the MONTAVILLA Jazz Fest this year here in Portland at the end of the month. And throughout August, I will be featuring some of the artists playing this year. So stay tuned for more of those, including this one with Adriana. The festival is August 30th through September 1st over in that MONTAVILLA neighborhood of Portland. Love MONTAVILLA. Adriana will be playing with her quintet at 4 p.m. on August 31st. Links for the festival, as well as Adriana, will be in the episode notes. And I will also be DJing that Saturday as a part of the festivities over at Beer Bunker from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. So I'm stoked to get to do that. And with all that, we are going to get into this thing. Big thanks to Adriana for jumping on the mics with me. Check out her record that she put out called She Sleeps, She Wakes. We talk about that a little bit in the conversation, and you'll hear some tunes throughout the chat as well from it. And to kick off episode 423 with Adriana Wagner, we're going to play a track off that record. It's called Third Planet from the Sun. Let's do the damn thing.
Yeah, it's pretty much the vibe. It's a lot of coffee slurping, you know. Yeah. Other than that, I guess if you're feeling good, we can jump into it, Adriana.
Let's get into it.
Excited to have you here. I've seen you play a few times now, I guess, over the last couple years around town, like whether it's your own music or playing with other bands. I got to see you play some of your own music, I guess, for the first time was with Brown Calculus at that little art space downtown a month ago.
Yeah. Nice.
And that was really cool. I think that was the first time I got to see you play anything maybe that you had written. The other times was I saw you play once with Chris Frank's Frank Irwin Quintet.
Oh yeah.
And then I saw you play a set with Lily Shears.
Perfect.
At Mississippi Studios, a part of the trio setup.
Yeah.
Which was really great. So I've gotten to see you play a few times, and just dig your tones and your playing for
Thank
sure.
you.
So I'm excited
That's a good,
to
well-rounded view of my playing, all those different groups.
yeah, I like it. It's nice getting to see someone like you that jumps around and plays in different things, and not only get to see you play some of your own music, but some different styles.
Yeah.
And ensembles and stuff like that. I feel like it definitely informs different approaches, I guess, to things, and brings out different things, I'm sure, in your playing when you're playing in different groups opposed to just writing your own music.
Yeah, I think so. I think it helps me like overall create more of just my sound and bring that to each group. Yeah, and then it kind of just translates to each genre that I play in. I feel like
Yeah.
I don't have to like totally switch my playing each time,
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are your early memories of music?
My early memories of music, like playing it.
Yeah, either as a player or as a listener.
My early memories, I would say ones that really like spoke to me or made me feel passionate about music was definitely playing Ellington and Mingus, for the first time, and like hearing them and just being in like a total trance when listening to them and being like, oh, this is so foreign to me, all these sounds that I think I grew up listening to, what my parents listened to, and that's like a lot of Bob Marley and Sublime and some like Suicidal Tendencies.
Yeah.
Just like they were like total like 90s. I feel like they embraced the 90s,
Yeah.
So all of that sounds
Did you appreciate any of that growing up, or did you?
I still love it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But
There was something different.
yeah, they never listened to jazz.
Yeah.
Like that was never something common in any of my households. So when I heard that, like I was pretty intoxicated with the sound. I just loved it. I was like, I needed my fix of it,
Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel like it was just something about like less structure and things of that nature with the jazz, or what do you think like spoke to you about like the way that it kind of grabbed a hold of you?
I think it was more so how it was able to express like a spectrum of emotions, like in very intricate ways.
Yeah.
And like, emotions or feelings that really resonated with me. Like they can express like loneliness or hardship or joy and all of those things in between that I feel like in a lot of music it's very overt, like think about like pop music and it's like you're gonna know if this song is happy or sad.
Yeah.
Right. And that can go with a lot of other music, but I feel like like when I started listening to jazz, it was just more of a spectrum, which I felt like is just more closely related to how we experience emotions, but it is nice to just be like, I want to put on Bob Marley and this will be happy.
Yeah. Yeah, something like that does have that more like direct narrative, because I think that's like what I fell in love with, like instrumental music, and it happened like a lot later for me. And I grew up so much like on like singer-songwriter stuff or pop music or things that had like a lot of big hooks and definitely like had lyrics to like let me know what the tone of the song was.
Totally.
But then it was like getting into instrumental music. I've talked about it a lot on this podcast of just like how it really allows you as the listener to like just kind of go wherever you're going to go with it,
Yeah.
like it just like allows your imagination to kind of like really get going, I think, with the instrumental music.
Yeah. And I remember like in high school when I started really getting into it, and I think it was like my third year of listening to it, and it didn't really like register to me if the song had lyrics or not. But I remember I was playing some jazz, just hanging out with friends, and they're like, can we listen to something with words in it? And I was like, oh, sure.
You just got like so used to that.
Yeah. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that. Was that your entry point into instrumental music for the most part too? Was hearing jazz for the first time?
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. And what led you to the jazz? Was it like playing high school band stuff, or was it someone that showed you some of the, you know, the popular jazz records?
Yeah, I was in this band that would compete a lot, and it was called a conglomerate band. So I mean, it drew kids from a lot of different high schools, kind of like a magnet band, just like but it had like, you know, Charlie Brown was in it with me.
Oh, okay.
Damo Branch. A lot of people came out of it. Also like Haley Neiswanger, Nicole Glover, Esperanza Spalding. So it was kind of just, you know, one of the more serious high school jazz programs, I would say, in Portland. And they were recruiting. They were trying to find people. It was actually hard for them to find people, believe it or not, because it was really intense.
Yeah, you have to like want to be a part of something like that in some way.
Yeah, really intense. A lot of, you know, dedication and stressful. So people would do it for a little bit and be like, no, thank you. But I found myself there because they were recruiting, and I was in high school, like my freshman year, just freshly moved to Portland. And I was like a little bit more experienced than the kids in my high school jazz band at Roosevelt, because they didn't have middle school experience. They didn't have, you know, that streamline of kids coming from middle schools. And I had middle school experience. So I was like, oh, I'm kind of good, you know?
Yeah.
So once they came around recruiting to Roosevelt, my high school teacher had chosen a handful of students to go check it out. And I wasn't one of them. And I was like, what the heck? I was like, I just took the bus there and showed up on my own without any invite. Yeah.
That's amazing.
And I was like, hello? What is this?
Did they like allow you to come in and play?
I think the band leader was like, what are you doing? Like,
just appreciated your ambition a little bit to just be like, fuck it.
I think he was
going.
curious. Like,
yeah.
Okay. And I sat down and I played Perdido by Ellington, and it was like, I don't think I caught one note. I was like, this is the fastest music I've ever heard. I'm like, I didn't even know it could be played this fast. I didn't know music was this fast.
Was trombone your first instrument?
Yeah.
So what got you into actually playing?
Well, I had just moved to Michigan and joined school a little bit late.
Okay.
But I was just like, I just wanted to do band so bad. And I don't really remember why. I think I just really always loved music and wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Like more than just listening. I was like, I want to contribute to this, you know?
Yeah. This is like junior high?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is like 6th grade. So I just asked to be in the band program, and since it was a little late, I didn't really get to pick my instrument. So I was there. The band teacher was like, well, if you want to join, you have to play trombone because that's what we need. And I was like, okay, I don't know what that
is. Did you seem to take to it pretty quickly, or like what was the learning curve for you with something like that? Like, had you ever touched any other instrument? And I would also assume that like, even if you had played some other instruments, maybe that's like not everything translates to trombone anyway.
Oh yeah. I mean, I still have a learning curve with the instrument, but I don't know. I definitely had a really hard time because I feel like, and I have a lot of experience teaching high school band at this point with people just coming into this instrument.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like trombone is one of the harder instruments to learn, to start on, especially when you're younger. It's just not as intuitive, and it's not like you have buttons or anything. And their arms are a little shorter, you know, and also another thing is that the trombones in high school bands are like always dented up, and it's like impossible to move the slide. And I'm like, that's like driving a car without a steering wheel. I'm like,
Yeah.
but anyways, that's just something I've been frustrated with recently.
Just that like people aren't even like getting an instrument that's going to be friendly
Yeah.
to them.
I'm like, this
being
is
able
why
to
we
learn.
don't have trombone players.
It's like, here's the shittiest instrument for you to learn on.
Yeah. Exactly. But I would say I'm pretty stubborn or hard-headed, and so when I'm like, I feel like people tell me I can't do something, or I feel like I'm discouraged from it, I just want to do it more. So I guess trombone was the perfect instrument for me
Yeah.
to keep pursuing in that sense. And I really didn't like it. I felt embarrassed by it, honestly, until I was like reaching the end of my freshman year. Then I started hearing trombone in a context I could actually get with, which was jazz, like Jimmy Knepper and with Charles Mingus, with some of my first like aha moments, like this is how you can be expressive on the trombone, and this sounds good. And you know, before that I'm just like, I want to be cool, I want to play a cool instrument. You know, I want to be a rhythm section player.
Do you feel like the trombone is cool now, or do you still feel like similar to when you first got into it?
Yeah, now I feel like it's really cool because it's very unique.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like there's like a lot of you out there, just like even in our immediate scene of like Portland. Like
Yeah.
how many trombone players can you name? Like I know you and James and Denzel.
Yeah, I probably could name 15 if I really tried
Yeah.
hard. But I also I'm not familiar with the more classical scene.
Okay.
Probably way more over there as well.
Yeah.
But I feel like we all have our own things, all the trombone players, and sometimes we mix, you know, when we're playing like with ensembles, like larger ensembles. But we kind of just have our own little pockets
Yeah.
because we all like to do our own specific thing, you know, so it's nice.
So because you were like hard-headed and maybe like stubborn, or are stubborn, like was there kind of like a lot of time spent on your own trying to figure out this instrument, or was it even like a thing that you got to take home with you, or was it only something that you could practice while you were at school?
Yeah, my dad ended up like renting to buy one for me
Okay.
with the I guess rule that I had to stick with it throughout all of middle school.
Okay.
So it was like all or nothing really if he was going to invest in it, which of course I'm glad he did now, but at the time I just hated practicing, and I think it's because I didn't know what to do, like what to practice.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, yeah, I wanted to play the little music out of the Essential Elements books, but I'm like, I don't even know how to work this instrument, you know? But my dad would be like, you have to practice. So I would sometimes just play like recordings of trombone like in my room on the speaker, and I think he bought it. He never said anything, and he was pretty strict, so
That's amazing.
but now I'm just like, like, why didn't you just practice?
That's so good. Just like, look how good I've gotten. He's like, this is some beautiful
Yeah.
music you're playing.
Yeah, he's like, what were you playing earlier? Oh my god, I have a prodigy on my hands.
Is it just like a pretty lonely instrument to practice on your own too?
Like, how do you mean?
I don't know, like just as far as like your enjoyment, I guess, of playing by yourself, or like what does it look like to practice trombone on your own? Like, is it playing to something, or is it just like playing to written music that you're playing by yourself? Or
Yeah. Well,
I'm a dummy.
yeah, what do you
Adriana.
play?
Like, I don't play really any, like, I know how to play a little bit of guitar, you know, but like not to like any sort, like I don't understand music theory, or like I don't have any like formal training or anything like
Yeah.
that. So like the trombone feels like a pretty, I guess, like foreign instrument to me,
Yeah.
as far as like my knowledge of it at all. Like, I understand that you are moving the slide to like tap into the keys, or so
So like you're saying from a perspective of being able to play chords
yeah.
and like having that element, like accompaniment. I get that. Sometimes I do wish I had that. But I think it's just a sound that I'm used to
Yeah.
at this point. So it doesn't feel lonely, but I think everybody feels pretty alone sometimes when they're practicing their instrument, because it can be pretty frustrating and isolating. I mean, for me, definitely. But I do like when I get into my grooves and I get excited about practicing, and I'm always thinking about like, what am I going to practice next?
Yeah.
And it just comes in waves. But yeah, more so like my enjoyment and passion for it. But even if that is absent, I still need it's something I need to pursue, because if I don't, there's something missing in my life and something's not moving forward. You know, if my instrument and my progress and, you know, discoveries on my instrument aren't parallel with like just me as a person,
Yeah.
like moving forward, then something's off, like something's unaligned with me. And sometimes I'm just like, I was talking with a friend about this, like when you're not practicing lately and your instrument's starting to feel like foreign to you, like you're losing kind of a friendship. And then all of a sudden you have that day where you just have like a great, maybe even like 2-hour practice session.
Yeah.
You're just like, I'm on top of the world. Like, I could go lift a car right now. Like, I feel great. It's like such a kind of a, what's the word? Serotonin boost.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting how something like that is like so external can like become a part of you in some way like that too.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there was a shift when that, like, when you noticed that kind of happened for you, or like when it felt like the trombone and you were like aligned in some way, or like when you started to feel like if you weren't playing it, things didn't feel right? Or
Definitely high school. Definitely whenever I started, well, I was also competing a lot, and that's kind of can be a hard environment to learn music in. So I kind of always had this guilt that if I wasn't practicing, I was not doing good or failing, you know what I mean?
yeah. And competing like as an ensemble, like with other,
Yeah.
so you're like have the weight of the responsibility of like not letting down your bandmates
Exactly.
as well.
Yeah, and we were tough on each other too.
Was that during the like the magnet school that you
Yeah.
were talking about?
Yeah.
So was there like a moment like in between like junior high and high school when you felt like you were starting to like understand, or like feeling like you were getting good at the instrument,
No.
that like gave you the confidence to like jump on the bus that day on your own to go, you know, audition
I don't know
for this,
what was wrong
this
with me.
school?
Well, I guess it was, when I first moved back to Portland and was starting high school, I was about to quit. I was like, I don't like this at all. I didn't feel any support
Yeah.
for playing music, and understanding the trombone. So I was like, I don't want to do this. And then it was kind of like that encouragement that when I joined the high school, Roosevelt High School, and I had slightly more experience than other people, I'm like, what? That was an interesting dynamic for me, because I always felt like I was like the kind of least experienced person in the room. So then I went from that, and then went right back down when I joined that program outside of high school.
Just when you got like a slight boost of confidence, and they're like, we're going to take you down a peg now.
Yeah. A lot of pegs. Yeah, I was actually talking to somebody about just the trombone, and she just like a lot of people don't understand how it works and how you put it on your face and make noise out of it. And she was like, do your wrists hurt or does your face hurt? Like, I'm like, no, mainly like my dignity the most, or ego. I think that's what hurts the most after playing.
Just from holding up
My
this
pride.
goofy instrument.
Yeah. No, it's hilarious to see photos of me playing, and my slide is all the way extended in 7th position, and it's like looks so long. I'm like, what the heck am I playing? So weird.
It does like appear to be a pretty physical instrument though, like watching someone play trombone.
Yeah.
Does it feel that way when you're playing?
No. I mean, I feel like that's what I think about drums.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm like, that's like a full body workout.
Yeah.
Like, isn't it? But I don't know. It's funny. Whenever I just hold my trombone up and don't play anything, my arms get tired. But I could be playing things for like 20 minutes and my arms won't be tired. I don't know what it is. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, it would seem to me that it would be exhausting holding that thing up. I guess I have no idea like what the weight of a trombone is either. It could be like, I'm assuming it's not as light as a feather, but it could be, or it could be as heavy as like a bowling ball to me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just like so unknown.
I'll never tell you. I won't tell your listeners either.
Just go ahead and Google
Just keep
that.
the mystery alive.
Yeah. Please don't Google it. Did you enjoy the intensity of the music school, or was it like kind of give and take? Or
I do, I like being motivated for sure, and I like being in an environment where people also have that same mindset.
yeah,
But no, I didn't. After the fact, I was like, I wish I had a more healthy approach to music, because there's a lot of things now that I'm having to like work on and kind of like, what's the word? Internalize, like all the stuff I've internalized about music.
yeah,
I now need to reverse,
yeah. You have to like unlearn some of those things.
Yeah, definitely. I just had this mindset that I was never good enough and I didn't belong in it, or, you know, especially the competing aspect. So that was like music is a competition. So all these things that just made music so stressful for me. And every time I played afterwards, I was so hard on myself. And it wasn't really till end of college that I started feeling differently. And that was what, like 2 years ago?
Yeah. What do you think, like, maybe allowed you to not break, I guess, during those times where, like, when you were so hard on yourself or, like, experiencing that sort of intensity? Like, what do you think kind of, like, kept you going to get through it instead of just quitting? Because, like, I have heard, you know, many people kind of speak about these types of intense music programs that, like, kind of break their spirit and maybe push them away from playing music altogether, or at least for a period of time, or maybe like really change their relationship with their instrument, like you're talking about. Like, I've seen that happen.
Yeah. Well, I did try quitting, and I feel like I couldn't, because like I was saying earlier, like it felt like something serious was missing from my life, and didn't know how else to be fulfilled. I didn't know anything else to do, and that's not to say I don't have other things I love in life, but it just felt like nothing was a good fit for me, you know?
Yeah.
And I felt like another thing was this was going to kind of be the key to my future, and just finding a path in life and just making something more of myself.
Yeah.
You know?
So did you already kind of like have that in mind then in high school, that you were like going to pursue music as your life path?
Yeah, I would say like the like contrast of my home life versus like what I did with this high school program was pretty stark, and I was just like, it started feeling like, oh, like music like this is what's going to get me out of whatever situation this is. Because I would be in one situation with my upbringing that was like a negative environment, but then the next day I would be like in New York, surrounded by, you know, like all these other kids doing the same thing, and just like crazy intense and amazing, and you know, so just experiencing that, I'm like, well, it seems like this is what's gonna get me out of it, you know, and this is what's how I'm gonna find myself in a better position in life, and environments that really feed me, you know.
Yeah. Did it also just like seem like the trombone or music was this thing that was like a constant in your life, that was like, if you were feeling like there was maybe like instability or stuff instability. What a fucking idiot.
When you're
don't worry guys, I have
like
400 episodes of a podcast and I don't know how to say instability, but like, because maybe you were like experiencing, you know, volatile environments, like do you think you kind of like really gripped on to music and the trombone in that way, of just feeling like that was a safe haven in some way, even if you were just like bouncing into this other intense environment?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. What have been the things that have been maybe like hardest to unlearn when you think about like where you're at now and having some of that with you still?
I would say being hard on myself, like being nice to myself after I play a show.
Yeah.
And telling myself like, people aren't just being nice to you because they feel bad for you, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I got on stage and people are just like, oh, that poor girl.
Like they're not actually
We should be
enjoying
really
it.
nice to
It's
her.
like, oh,
And say good job.
you were really up there doing your thing.
You did something up there.
Yeah. Is it hard for you to receive compliments after you play? Like,
Sometimes
yeah.
when I truly feel like I didn't like how I played or I didn't do a good job and people are telling me I sounded good, I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
No. But I've gotten out of the habit of responding like that. I just try to put on a smile now and just be genuine and say thank you so much.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what that person is experiencing truly. And even myself, like I record myself a lot at performances and I'll listen to it maybe the next day or even right after the show on my car ride home or a week later and be like, what? I love this. Like, I actually sound really good. Or sometimes I'll be like, I feel really good. And I listen to it and I'm like, what the heck?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What do you like about listening back?
I like just analyzing like my patterns or things I thought sounded good, but I'm really like listening back and I'm like, I need to change that,
Yeah.
Like hearing like, oh, I'm using a weird vibrato a lot, or I sound like I'm having a hard time in the high register, things like that, you know, just kind of broad things about my playing that I'm like, now I know what I need to improve on, because when I'm performing, it's kind of like having time to think about what I'm doing kind of goes out the door. It's all kind of muscle memory and instinct at that point, so I really get a honest look into my playing, like what are the things I do when kind of half my brain shuts off, right?
Yeah.
And I'm more thinking about the performative aspect,
Yeah. When you are playing live now, do you always feel like it's like this pretty transcendent thing where the music like just takes you, or do you feel pretty grounded like on the stage with the other musicians around you?
It really depends. Sometimes it hits me out of nowhere, and I will people don't notice, but I like cry a lot on stage.
Yeah.
But my eyes are closed anyways. And it will happen at the weirdest times. But I would say that happens way less than me just kind of being grounded and being like, all right, gotta do this, and kind of being more present in my immediate surroundings versus just present in the music,
Yeah.
But I would say that's like, that's kind of how life is. Most of the time you're not going to be happy, but then when you do get those little feelings of joy and happiness once in a while, then you're like, this makes it all worth it. I love this feeling. Maybe I'm speaking for people, but that's how I am.
Do you find that that emotion that comes over you maybe when you do cry on stage or something along those lines, is it typically happen more when you're playing music that you've composed versus something else, like versus someone else's compositions, or is it both?
Yeah, I would say both, but I would say it has happened more consistently with my music.
Yeah.
Because what I write about, what I compose is like kind of just the more sad things about life or feelings or experiences, and whenever I get to express that through music, it's quite nice. It feels like a nice release.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. I think that you can definitely feel that there is a heavy weight and emotion, like listening to your tunes, you know, like on the She Sleeps, She Wakes record, you know. I feel like you can definitely feel that it comes from a heavy place, like often.
Yeah, that's nice to hear. Thank you.
When did you start composing music of your own?
I would say kind of late college. So I would say 2020.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's been about 4 years now that I started composing music, and I just kind of found my voice in it pretty quickly, and it felt very like natural, you know?
Yeah, what is composing music like as a trombone player? What does that look like? Are you writing on other instruments at times, or are you just, how does that typically unfold?
Yeah, I do use a lot of piano.
Okay.
It kind of switches. Most of the time I just use my voice, and I record myself. Just like little voice memos. I could be anywhere, just driving somewhere, and I'm like, ooh, I'll record that. And then a lot of my songs happen like by just going through my voice memos from like the past like 4 months or however long.
Yeah.
And being like, oh, that one still sticks with me. You know, let me see what else I can find within that little melody or even bass line, you know, or I'll play like a set of chords on the piano and be like, at the time I can't tell if it's going anywhere. Sometimes I start with something and it all just comes out at once, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I know exactly how all this sounds. And sometimes I'm just like, I create a little 4-bar chord progression, and I'm like, I don't know if this is anything, but I'll record it anyways and come back to it, and I feel like then I'll have the perspective to tell.
Yeah. What would you say like your biggest maybe like challenges in writing, or like do you feel like you're always writing through like the lens of a trombone player first?
Yeah, probably. Probably. I don't know. I mean, I do play very melodically, and I feel like that's how I compose as well. It's very melody driven and very kind of lyrical, like all flows together,
Yeah.
you know? And I feel like trombones do accomplish that pretty well. I feel like that's that's like a strength that we have on the trombone, is playing melodies, because it's so close to the voice and the nuances of the voice, you know?
Yeah. That makes sense then, as far as like you using those voice memos, like even if you're just like singing things, then
Yeah.
that you can kind of copycat that in some way, or translate it to the trombone.
Totally.
So do you feel like you're able to express as much as you would be able to with words and lyrics as you can without them through the music?
I actually don't. I've written lyrics to one of my songs, but most of the time I don't. I'm just singing
Yeah.
melodies, yeah.
But just as far as like when you're putting these songs together and like playing them out, or putting them out on a record, like,
Yeah.
do you feel like you can communicate just as much without the words?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe some people are like, I wish this had words. But I feel like it can. I feel like it can still resonate with people, even though I'm not telling them specific things. Like,
Yeah.
this is about a hard time I had when I was depressed. And, like, those are the lyrics, so they know exactly what I'm talking about. But instead, I feel like I'm able to accomplish it because when I'm performing it, it feels like that. It feels like the emotion or the experience that I wrote about. And so I would imagine that other people would have some interpretation of that, you know, like maybe they feel that emotion in their own way too. And that's what I always hope for my music. Like, that's always the goal, you know?
Yeah. I think you can definitely like feel that through the record. And then also like when I saw you play that duo set in that little space, like all of that, you know, emotion definitely translates and you can feel it for sure.
Thank you.
I think it would be hard not to, like whether there's lyrics or not, you know?
Yeah, totally.
Especially if you're like there for it and you're like there for the listening experience and like open to it.
Yeah.
You know, you said in like college that this is like kind of like when you found your like real joy for playing.
Yeah.
What was kind of like the flip of the switch there for you? Like,
I think composing definitely had a lot to do with it. Because for the longest time, I truly believed that I was an imposter in the music scene and that everybody else had figured out something that I had not.
yeah.
And I didn't know where I fit in. I'm like, I'm not a fast bebop player. I don't have great technique, like all these things. And when I started composing, I felt so sure that this was where I belonged. This is where people could really hear my voice and my identity in music, and I could feel like natural in music, you know?
Yeah. And did you like have some people around you that were like instrumental in like propelling you in some way, or like did you have some people along the way that like were really encouraging or just maybe like just changed the way you thought about your playing or like your place in music?
Yeah, Daryl Grant.
Okay.
Are you familiar?
I'm not. Who is Daryl?
He's a pretty heavy musician.
Okay. Sorry, Daryl.
Sorry, Daryl.
I fucked
Shout
up.
out, Daryl. Heavy musician in the scene.
Tune in next week for Daryl Grant's episode.
Hey, so who are you? Oh, gosh.
This is the new thing I do. I ask people who this person is, and then they have to be the next episode.
Ooh, that's good.
It happened with Machado and Mike Gamble. It was great.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that how I got on here?
No,
Okay,
it is
good.
not. It is not. That would be nice, though, right? If someone was like, "Oh, you got to have Adriana."
You gotta check her out. Yeah. That would be nice. But anyways, he is incredible and has accomplished so much with music, like way outside of Portland too, I think. But now he just teaches at PSU, and that's how I was able to study with him. And
Okay.
that one term like gave me so much. Like, I learned so much more from him in that one term than I did throughout a lot of college and with different teachers. And he could tell, I think, that I was taking this composing thing seriously, and I wanted to do my senior recital with all my original compositions. And he was like, he even told me, he was like, I don't know, that's pretty ambitious. And then I showed up with all these originals that I had wrote for him, and he was just impressed, and that felt good too.
Yeah.
Have him be impressed, because I think so highly of him, you know. And he'll just sit down and tell me, he'll just be like, like you just like say something so kind of specific but also generalizing about my composing or playing and be like, we need to fix that, you know? Instead of, I feel like a lot of teachers, they won't tell you what's what, or maybe they don't know how to tell you or what to tell you with your playing. Like, you need to work on this. That's imperative that you work on this. And that also they're coming from a place of love, like you trust them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, for sure.
That's the most important part, is that context.
Yeah, you can like tell that it's constructive and they're not just
Yeah,
like
constructive, that's the word.
they're not just like, oh, this doesn't sound right. And it's like, okay, well, how about some
Exactly.
specificity?
Exactly.
We're gonna get all the words out on this one. Yeah, so you just like really took to that style of teaching. You could tell
Yes.
that there was like care and love there, and
Yeah.
some trust that was built up there.
Yeah.
Do you think that has really like overflowed into your style of teaching now that you're in that position to help younger people kind of find their voice on instruments?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for the longest, I would always be, I feel like, pretty careful with my students because I know how it felt to be discouraged.
Yeah.
I never wanted to do that accidentally. So I think I would be a little too sensitive, overly sensitive to them. But now I think like being direct is just better, and being like, you're not doing this technique right.
Yeah.
Let's work on that.
Yeah.
And I feel like that builds more trust, you know?
Yeah. Why do you think that is? Like, what about that approach works better, or like at least like stuck with you?
Well, I just feel like you're being honest with them, you know, but you're also there to support them
Yeah.
on learning it, instead of just kind of being like, yeah, that sounded good. Like, not really giving constructive feedback,
Yeah.
you know? It's like, well, that's why you're in this lesson, right?
Yeah. To learn some things.
Yeah.
And to be like taught how to do it better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need somebody to tell you if you're bullshitting, you know?
If you're not putting in the work.
But that person needs to be, like, needs to back it up, right?
Yeah.
There needs to be a foundation of trust there already, or else it can kind of be read totally different.
Yeah. Or, yeah, I guess like show that they can help facilitate some of that improvement.
Yeah. I think so. Everybody responds to different teaching styles. Or everybody responds to, yeah, is receptive to different teaching styles. And that's just what I prefer at this point.
Yeah.
You know, I just want somebody to be direct with me and be like, this is how we're going to fix it, or this is what we're going to learn to do, you know, and that motivates me. I'm like, yes, let's do it.
Yeah.
You know?
For people that don't know, like, what is a senior recital in a music program? And like,
Yeah.
it is pretty rare for someone to just play like all originally composed music versus a mixture, or
Yeah, I feel like it's usually more common to have like a mixture of standards
okay.
and their originals. I feel like I've been seeing it's more common now to do originals. But the senior recital is pretty much like a showcase of your 4 years in the university.
Okay.
So you put on a concert,
Okay.
and yeah, you kind of just have to curate a whole concert, and got to hire people, you got to make sure the music's ready. It just has to be a very polished performance.
And you're not like, is it a thing of like, you're not participating necessarily also in the playing of?
No, yeah, you definitely are.
Okay.
That's a big part of it.
Are there like other like aspects of it when you're just like putting together the music and then someone else is like a whole ensemble is playing that music without you?
Well, yeah, I mean, I definitely don't play the whole entire time. But it is mainly centered around your playing and your soloing and your compositions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just like, I don't know, when I was browsing YouTube yesterday, I think I was just like looking for some of your stuff, and I thought I saw maybe like an ensemble playing your
Yeah.
tune,
what you're
but
talking
you were
about.
not playing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was
It was like Todd Marston. And I think he was maybe the only person that I knew amongst that particular group that was playing.
that was a program I did with Portland Jazz Composers Ensemble.
Okay.
For the young jazz composers. And
Yeah.
I guess most of the students, it's just pretty common for them to not be performers already. And I was definitely a little bit older than most people in my cohort, so I had more experience, and so yeah, I just didn't play. But then it felt like weird. I'm like, I wrote all this. I know what it's supposed to sound like, and I composed this like on my trombone, and then I just have to sit in the audience and watch them play it, and I'm just like, no. That was the weirdest feeling ever.
For sure. I just wasn't sure if like that was like a component.
No, that was so...
Okay.
I would never do that again.
All right.
I mean, unless somebody commissioned something, that'd be cool.
Yeah, for sure. At that show that I saw you play with Brown Calculus, you talked about your love for salsa music and this time in your life when you like cut your teeth with a salsa band.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that experience and just like how that helped you improve as a player?
Yeah. I would say I just learned how to navigate playing gigs. They gave me a lot of experience in that realm. And like just being in so many different environments and learning how to really carry myself on stage. It was a weird environment. I'm just like this young girl. I wasn't even 18 yet when I started playing.
You're like playing bars and clubs
yeah,
and shit.
Totally. And, you know, all these men asking to dance and being weird and stuff. But I wasn't like, I liked it. I was having fun, you know. It was so like exciting to me when I was younger.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I would just be like all these intense environments. And I think that really helped me just like build up my chops, you know, because it takes a lot of like stamina to play salsa music and like reading skills. And also another thing that I'm realizing is if you're not like used to hearing this music or playing this music, then and you kind of play it later in your career, like learning those rhythms aren't like intuitive, you know. It's kind of hard to get, but since I started playing it so young and I was just in this environment surrounded by it all the time, it felt natural to know where the one is.
That feels like a lot different than playing jazz music.
No, not necessarily, but I mean for me, just because I was pretty well versed in the two.
Yeah.
I wasn't like gray. I definitely sounded like shit when I was younger. I think a lot of the bands just were excited about having a young pretty woman in their band. And I honestly think that's true, and I'm just like, well, I got a lot of great experience out of it until my later years, and then I truly believed I was being hired for my playing. Kind of. It's salsa. It's I feel like that scene definitely exploited me a little bit. But that's okay.
Was that your first exposure to playing that style of music?
Yeah. And kind of just performing in general.
Yeah. Do you feel like that playing that style of music is like it needs to be more performative in some ways than like playing the jazz gigs, as far as it being like so
Totally.
upbeat, like you have to kind of play the part a little differently?
Like the music part or the like just stage
like,
presence
yeah,
part?
like overall stage presence.
Well, yeah, this is like a dance-based music. Like
Yeah.
if we're playing for an audience and they're just sitting and listening, we know we're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
People, this is the dancing and this music shouldn't be a separate thing, you know?
Yeah.
And in jazz, it's a lot more listening.
Yeah, sitting in a club usually.
Unless you're like truly doing the swing music thing,
Right. Right.
which is rare.
Yeah. Did a lot of that translate over like into your brain, as far as like when you're composing music?
Oh yeah,
That salsa stuff really like seeped in there.
definitely. That's a big influence in my music.
Yeah.
And the bass lines, a lot of timbal in my music, instead of just being on like the 1, 2, 3, 4 beats. It's more like 1, 2, like on the and of the beats, you know, more. And I'm like, okay, I need to stop doing that with my music. I need to figure out something else. But I just feel like, I don't know, I guess I just really internalized that from playing salsa music.
It's just a part of you now.
Yeah, I didn't even realize it.
How do you feel like or like where do you feel like you're at with maybe the imposter syndrome at this point in your life? Or like how are you combating maybe the self-doubt when it arises?
Yeah, it's just something, it's like any kind of grief you experience in life. It's always going to come in waves and it's always going to feel different. Sometimes it feels easier to navigate. Sometimes it's, when it comes back, it's discouraging because you're like, I thought I worked through this.
Yeah.
You know? So I do still get it. I don't think it's as debilitating as it used to be though, because I'm like, I just have this fear that all of a sudden people are going to stop calling me for gigs, like, because employment isn't guaranteed in this field, you know?
Right.
And it's just like, at this point, it's kind of like every time I cut my hair, I'm always afraid it's not going to grow back. And I'm like, okay, you have to know it's going to grow back at this point. And I kind of feel like that's with gigs at this point.
Have you like found certain things that are helpful for you to like deal with those things, or like that can help ground you and be like, no, I'm good at this. Like,
Yeah.
I've put the time in and I've
Yeah.
gotten my reps, and like I can play in anyone's ensemble or I can play in my own.
I would say lately it's just been taking every gig that I have seriously, like really putting in the time to learn the music so I know that I'll like have a good performance,
Yeah.
so that it is more rewarding. And I do feel like I've made a good impression on people. And it just feels better like when you put the work in for something and then you perform it, and it just feels like just more of a breeze and you get to enjoy it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Instead of just like letting yourself get all down and be discouraged, be like, well, it's not going to be good anyway, so
Yeah.
I'm just going to do it. And then
that
you
can
kind
be
of just spiral a little bit in that.
Yeah. It can be tough to like bring that in to a gig that you haven't even played, but it's like I feel like easy to do that sometimes, of just being like, well, this isn't going to be good, there's not going to be anybody there, and then you just kind of phone it in, and then those are like the results or the return that you get on the thing.
Totally, yeah.
As far as like playing your own music versus music that other people have composed, or you know, playing in Chris Frank's band or playing with Lily, like what do you get maybe out of those experiences that you don't get out of like when you are playing your own music, or like vice versa? Like, do they feel pretty different to you?
Yeah, totally. Because I'm playing something that is like who they are as an individual and how they express themselves. And it's so personal and vulnerable, and I love it because it's like a feeling that's foreign to me, and it's really fun to explore and be a part of. Like I seriously love Lily Shear's original compositions, and
It's amazing.
yeah, it feels like this like weird kind of outer space feeling for me. And I'm just like playing it, and I'm like on a different planet. And I'm like, this is Lily's planet.
Yeah.
And I like it.
You just try to go there.
Yeah.
With it.
Same with the Frank Irwin quintet. Like, he brings the same vibe. I'm like, love being a part of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like you usually bring a lot back like into your own playing, like from those experiences as well, or just like when you get to see maybe how someone else like leads their band?
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say like my composing is definitely more in the vein of Lily Shears and Frank Irwin quintet than it is in a lot of the jazz scene. So I definitely compose a little bit more similar to them. But I do get to take away something each time I perform other people's original compositions, and the more I compose, the more it's like helpful to learn, like, because now I see exactly like what they're doing. Before, I was playing people's original compositions and I didn't really understand like the techniques that they were using, and now I'm like, oh, I can bring that a little bit into my compositions.
Yeah.
You know,
What ways do you feel like it's like the music you're composing is maybe similar to Lily's or Chris's?
I would say just like the atmospheric and lyrical elements to the music, you know, their overall vibe that's it's creating, you know. I don't know. I have to figure out how to put it into words.
Yeah. Yeah, I do feel like both those people are very good at like world building.
Yeah,
like, they
that's
really
a good way
create
of saying
worlds like with their music.
Yeah.
And I think I'd like definitely get the same thing out of listening to your record though. You know, like it's pretty easy to kind of fall into the world that you've built with that collection of tunes.
Yeah, thank you.
Was that your first go at putting a record together?
Yeah, and it happened really quick.
Is that stuff like all like kind of just recorded live in a room?
Yeah, it was recorded at my pianist's house, Matt Sazama. We just did it in his living room.
Yeah. What do you feel like you learned from that experience that you'll maybe carry forward into making the next collection of tunes?
Well, I learned that my music deserves more effort and respect, because I would take it seriously, like composing it. But in terms of asking, you know, the people I hired to rehearse and asking for more of their time of it, like we just recorded it all in one day, right?
Yeah.
And putting myself in a recording studio and just being like having maybe a producer or people helping me listen to it and telling me what I need to change about the mixing or mastering. I feel like I could have used more guidance on that, because I didn't really understand what that was
Yeah.
before I did this. So the whole process I kind of just scurried through, because I was like, I didn't think I deserved it.
Like you didn't deserve people's time to like work on these tunes.
Yeah, I didn't think I deserved an album yet. I didn't think I deserved to be recorded yet. And even had a teacher tell me that. They're like, you know, I was reached out to by Portland jazz composer ensemble records. They're like, we are thinking about having you on because they've heard some of my originals.
Yeah.
We love for you to have an album. And I told my teacher, one of my teachers at PSU about it, and they were like, do you even think you're ready? Like, I don't know if you're ready.
Dude, it's so fucking weird.
I know, it's ridiculous when I say it out loud, but at the time I'm like, yeah, maybe you're right. Like, you know?
Yeah. That didn't help with the self-doubt.
No, but I think I already had that in my mind. Like, I don't know. I just want to get this over with. And then I applied for a grant, which was, you know, good and bad for me because I got the grant. It was my first time applying for it. And shout out to Ryan Marr from PJCE Records, who helped guide me in figuring out how to get a grant.
Yeah.
And I got it. And then I was like, yay at first. And then I was like, oh my God, I actually have to do this now. I don't have a choice.
Now you got the money, you're on the hook
and
for
like the
it.
deadline was coming, and I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, I actually just have to go in the studio and record something,
Yeah.
like, you know, well, or the house, whatever.
For sure.
So I just wanted to get it all done. And now if I was to do it again, I'd be like, no, like, I'm going to make sure my band knows exactly what we're doing in there. Like, we're going to rehearse, or we're going to have some shows lined up before, so it's natural for us. So, and I'm going to have like a producer in mind to help guide me through this. I'm going to have all these things, you know?
Yeah. You feel like you deserve that now. Like
Yeah.
that
I mean, I deserved it last time too.
Yeah,
I
for
just
sure.
didn't have the confidence, I guess.
Yeah. Is that, I don't know. Do you feel like that's like a common thing? Is that like just some like jazz world fuckery where somebody like tells you that like, are you even ready?
Yes.
Because like that to me
Definitely.
like would never happen like if in a singer-songwriter world. I feel like if someone was like, I'm going to go
To the
make
open
an
mic.
EP. You know, I'm going to go record my first few songs. Like,
Yeah.
I don't feel like someone would say that. Like, are you even ready?
Yeah.
It's like maybe, or like, I feel like that question could be like brought up to maybe someone that's like very new and going in to like spend a bunch of money at like a
Yeah.
professional recording studio.
Totally.
And I think that's always like great to check in to be like, yo, are you like even ready? Like, are you prepared?
Right.
You know, to go into a studio and like not waste time
Yeah.
while you're making a record, you know.
Yeah.
Like I feel like, are your songs prepared is like a constructive comment.
Exactly.
Like that could have been
That's very
a
true.
better thing to say rather than like,
Yeah.
are you even like ready? Like, do you like, are you
could have been more
musically ready
constructive.
like to
Yeah.
go do this? I don't know. That seems fucked.
I guess it is. Now thinking about it, I've gotten a lot of comments like that
Yeah.
in my life, and I know people just experience that in general and in the scene.
Yeah, when you think about like maybe making a next collection of tunes now, do you think it is pretty important to like maybe play those songs in a live setting a little bit too, just to like see how they work out or what comes out of them rather than just like this one time through with a band? Or
Yeah. I'm thankful that the people that I recorded with, Damo Branch and Matt Sazama and Garrett Baxter, we all have a lot of chemistry and can anticipate each other's needs.
Yeah.
And we're all just like the rhythm section, they're all just very accomplished and capable and intelligent musicians. And I really trusted them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do get to ask things of people when they're playing my music, and
Yeah.
that's kind of a new rule going forward. Like, you heard it here first, but I'm no longer doing free shows of my music, you know? And I'm like, I'm even if like I know the musicians are capable, I'm still going to ask for a rehearsal if they
Yeah.
haven't played it before or it's kind of a bigger gig. Or I would just jump into it. I'd be like, okay, can you do this gig? it pays, but I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to make you play my music. Like, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was hard at
Yeah.
first.
I think, that makes sense, but like I'm sure there are people out there that would be like stoked to play your music and stoked to like put the time in, and also it's like a representation of them too. Like they're going to be listed on that record somewhere,
Yeah.
So like,
Right.
I would think that everybody would want to just like buy in and invest the time to like make the coolest thing possible.
I would hope.
So,
But these are all things, like I said, that I've slowly been unlearning.
yeah.
So since I got out of college and maybe towards the end of college, I've been unlearning these things about how I approach music and how I let it, just my overall mindset about it, having a healthier, more positive relationship with it.
Yeah. What made you feel like all like that particular group of tunes, like what made you feel like they all kind of belonged together on a record? Or was it part of it just like the circumstance of, kind of having this deadline? And
Yeah, I guess I just wanted the ones that I felt like could translate to a broader audience the most,
yeah.
and less in like a specific, maybe like jazz category, or, I write some more obscure tunes, and I kind of just wanted things that were more like easily interpreted.
Yeah, just like a little more accessible. And
Yeah, and I would say I do generally write like that already.
yeah.
And it had a lot to do with the ones that I felt like were most emotional as well.
Yeah. That does feel like the common thread to me is like the weight of the emotion between all of the tunes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's rad.
Thank you.
I think you did a great job. I think you're doing a great job of unlearning, Adriana.
Thank you.
Where do you feel like, just like close things out, like where do you maybe feel like you see the most growth in yourself, like whether it's like as a composer or just a player or just like a person out in the world, in the way that you're operating and your mindset?
Yeah. Well, I'm just making more room for joy in music and letting that take up more space than anything else.
Yeah.
Kind of just letting myself exist in the scene and playing music and not questioning myself as much and if I belong or not. I'm just like, well, I'm already here.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's really a question if I belong or not
And
at this point.
Is it like a conscious thing that you feel like you have to work at, or?
Yeah, totally. I think it's really common in the music scene as well, and some people just don't know how to express it. They suppress it, or it turns into insecurities that they project, or they don't want to talk about it, but I feel like it's pretty common. And we all deal with it in our own different ways. And I like talking about it. I like just putting it out there in the open.
Just be like, I'm not feeling this.
I'm not feeling too well, guys.
Well, it's so hard too, because you like when you're involved in a scene like this, you have so many other people to like compare yourself to.
Yeah.
As well, right? Like,
yeah.
And it's hard not to do that.
Yeah, totally.
So, yeah.
But I love the scene. I think I've found great connections and friends, and I'm always finding more in the scene, and it always feels nice wherever I'm traveling to, be able to come back to Portland and be like, I'm going to go to this show and I'll know everyone there. I'm going to go to this jam session. I'll know everybody there, and it'll just feel so familiar and good, like home.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the things I love about this city so much is that like I feel like I can kind of show up to any music adjacent thing, or like whether it's like a jazz jam, or if I go to like some singer songwriter like in the round thing, or just like,
Yeah.
if I go to any show, I feel like I am bound to run into at least like one person
Oh,
that I
yeah.
know or am familiar with. And,
Exactly.
And a lot of times it's like a handful of people, and it does like give that sense of like, oh, this is home, and
Yeah.
you know, do belong here in some ways. And but it's also had to like go out on the road and get to experience like different places through music too. Is very cool.
Yeah.
So, well, thanks for hanging with me. Thanks for jumping on the mics with a stranger.
Yeah. Thanks for having you. Good meeting you.
Yeah. Likewise. Appreciate your playing very much, and as well as your first collection of tunes. And I'll put the links in the episode notes so people can keep up with you, as far as, you know, shows you're playing around town. I know you're part of the MONTAVILLA Jazz Fest this year.
Yep.
And
August 31st.
I'll put all the links in the episode notes for you. I want to play the episode out with Purpose off your record.
Yeah.
Love that one. And Adriana, we end every episode of the podcast with a guest saying the tagline for the show, which is "It's a program," and it means program. It means nothing. It is the way that my grandfather says the word program. Like,
Okay.
if he was talking to you about your school program, he would be like, "Oh, how did your school program go?" You know, I don't know why he does it. It's very ridiculous, but it's a meaningless and goofy way that we end every episode of the podcast. So if we can get the Adriana Wagner "It's a program," we can properly end this thing.
All right.
You can do it however you like. It's the one time I'll ask you to look into the camera as
Okay.
well.
It's a program.
She nailed it, everybody. It's Adriana Wagner. Links are in the episode notes. We're playing the episode out with Purpose off of the She Sleeps, She Wakes record. And that's the Jelly Jams. And we will catch you on the flip side, Portland, or wherever you are listening from. Cool. We did it.
Yeah. Hell yeah.